Good day, True, and Maloelele from the warm capital of Nuku'alofa in the Kingdom of Tonga. My name is Ruth Toumu'a, and my father is from the highlands of Papua New Guinea. My mother is from the valleys of Nelson, New Zealand. I'm married to a Tongan, and currently at the moment I am in Tonga and I'm unable to be with you. But my heart is with you as you launch this research today. It was an honour to be asked to be involved and to carry out this research into two things that are dear to my heart. One is Pacific peoples and the other is literacy. And so in this project what we sought to do was to gain an understanding from Pasifika peoples in Aotearoa New Zealand. What does literacy mean to them? What does it mean to be literate as a Pasifika person in Aotearoa New Zealand? And by that, we also sought to then learn how does being literate as Pasifika lead into being successful as Pasifika in Aotearoa New Zealand. Our project has a three-part design in its methodology. We wanted to find out what literature told us, so we did a literature review. We wanted to also hear the voices of Pasifika people in New Zealand at the time. So we carried out two ways of doing this. The first was through a focus group or consultation groups. We held two of those, one of them in Auckland and one down in Christchurch. The second way was through an online survey, and that was carried out using survey software, and we had a good turnout of people sharing their views, their insights, their understandings, their aspirations for literacy and success as Pasifika in Aotearoa New Zealand. Our Pasifika people in New Zealand have very clear understandings of what it means to be literate as a Pasifika person, and they have kindly shared those understandings, and I have tried to faithfully capture those to boil them down into some understandable categories that will be helpful for the people who take up this research and carry it on into the future. What became apparent when we talked to Pasifika people was that literacy for success as Pasifika in Aotearoa New Zealand involves more than simply reading and writing, and more than just reading and writing in English. What we found was that reading and writing was one part of a much wider, much more holistic and broader conceptualization of literacy. And this had a lot to do with the oral cultural backgrounds that our participants and their ancestors had come from, and how here in Aotearoa, at the interface of many cultures, they were working to find an understanding of being literate that worked for them. Our participants shared with us an understanding of literacy that encompassed 6 main parts. And this is not to say that these are the only aspects of literacy, but these are the ones that our participants shared. Reading and writing was, of course, at the centre of their understanding of literacy as Pasifika, but it was by no means the only aspect to being literate. In addition to reading and writing in English, our participants also expressed the desire to be able to fluently read and write in the heritage languages of the Pacific, which were part of their lives. Another part of our understanding of literacy as Pasifika is to be fully competent in the oral and non-verbal communication aspects that make up part of how we communicate as Pasifika peoples. To be literate also meant to our respondents, it also meant having a strength of personal and collective identity as Pasifika in Aotearoa. And as I've mentioned, we are at the interface of multiple cultures. We are at a point where the generations are emerging as New Zealand born and New Zealand dwelling and needing an identity of their own that matches this. And so strength in personal and collective identity was as much a part of being a literate Pasifika person as reading and writing and the other aspects that I've spoken about so far. in addition to identity, or hand in hand with identity, was being firmly connected to a shared values base. And that values base had the core values that we often speak of and have been written about before, things like reciprocity, respect, relationships, generosity, and how all of these are lived out on a daily basis in the lives of a literate Pasifika person. Literacy for Pasifika in Aotearoa also involves a knowledge of and an ability to interpret and to produce the traditional arts of their respective heritage cultures. And by that, we mean being able to be involved in the production and the understanding and the perpetuation of art forms such as song and poetry and dance, also more concrete art forms such as tapa and mats and tattoo and all of the other beautiful art forms of the Pacific. And being a literate Pasifika person involved knowing these and carrying them on into the future in forms that are appropriate for this time and this day and this age. And finally, our Pasifika participants really stressed the importance of having digital technology knowledge and skills, as well as information technology knowledge and skills. And these were their response to an ever-changing technological environment and their desire to harness those tools to be able to fully express and communicate and be social and be involved and be up to date in many significant ways for them in their lives. And so these are the 6 aspects of being a literate Pasifika person that came through very strongly in our participants' sharings with us. Now, our participants shared their visions and aspirations and understandings of being literate as a Pasifika person in order to be able to show how these then fed into success as Pasifika in different areas of their life in Aotearoa New Zealand. And so as we boiled down the hundreds of responses that we received, we found that there were 5 main areas in which Pasifika wished to experience success as Pasifika in this beautiful nation. So being literate as a Pasifika person in Aotearoa New Zealand, it involved possessing a combination of skills and knowledge and values and identity. And so traditional understandings of literacy have focused quite heavily on the skills aspects and sometimes the knowledge aspects of literacy. But we found that for Pasifika, these things must go hand in hand with also the values and the identity bases that we draw on from our rich cultural heritages. Having this kind of holistic understanding of literacy then enabled them to experience the kind of holistic and transformative and families-oriented and cultural values-based success that they aspired to. There were 5 main areas in which our participants wished to experience holistic success as Pasifika. And the first of those was, as I've touched on before, identity. Being literate in the full sense that we've just spoken of enabled them to have security in their personal and collective identities in a way which a less holistic and less inclusive form of literacy could never do. As a Pasifika person in New Zealand, possessing an understanding and knowledge and skills and values and strength and identity then allowed them to participate interculturally with the people around them. And our position as people who are changing increasingly from being labelled migrant to being New Zealanders born and bred, this is an incredibly important aspect, being able to link and communicate successfully, dynamically, beautifully with the people in the nation around us. And being literate as Pasifika in the way that we have expressed was felt to enable this. The 6 aspects of literacy that we've spoken about for success as Pasifika also enable a Pasifika person to participate in civic life in mainstream New Zealand society and life to a fuller extent than they felt had been possible in the past if we did not possess that full and complete understanding of being literate. Having strong literacy skills, being literate as Pacifica, was also felt to lead into wider career options, career pathways that hadn't been open or envisioned before, and through that to then lead to the kind of financial stability and well-being that we haven't previously experienced as Pasifika in New Zealand. And finally, being literate in a holistic Pasifika way in Aotearoa New Zealand was felt to enable a Pasifika person to engage in leadership and advocacy and participate fully in the kind of social justice that they felt that was needed for their communities, on behalf of their families, on behalf of themselves. So to have the knowledge, the skills, the values, the identity, to be fully literate as a Pasifika person gave them the courage, gave them the skills, gave them the ability to take a leadership role, to advocate and to see social justice come about in their families and communities. So today it is this research that we celebrate, that we launch, that we set into motion, and I just wanted to say thank you to in advance to all of you who will hopefully battle your way through the many pages of this work in the attempt to better understand and to capture the vision and voices of our people and their aspirations for the future. This project was always intended to raise awareness. It was intended to be a first step in a journey of subsequent research projects to spur discussion, respectful discussion, with a shared goal of our experiencing success as Pasifika in Aotearoa New Zealand. It is our intention for this project to inform adult and community education policy and practice, and also to contribute to some tools for the development of the professionals who engage in adult and community education. It's also intended to inspire further research, and there are suggestions in the report for areas that could be further explored in the future. And just to close, and I'll leave you with the metaphor that was in my mind as I carried out this piece of work. And when I do research, I usually have that single metaphor that ties my projects together and enables me to achieve what I've set out to achieve. And in this case, it was that I was given the task of producing a woven floor mat. And this is a humble woven floor mat made of pandanus, but it is one that I weave with much love, and I sweep the floor, lay down the mat, and invite you all to come and be seated on the mat and to talanoa for the future success of our peoples as Pasifika in Aotearoa New Zealand.